Welcome to Beyond the Dragon, where we explore indie tabletop role-playing games and their design, to inspire you to play them or take what you like for your own creations. Hi there, my name's Oscar C. Tango.
And my name is Sun.
We're both tabletop game designers and professional game masters who love TTRPGs, and today we will be discussing Lancer. Lancer is a mech combat TTRPG that is available through Massive Press. Oh god, I don't know when it was published. There are two versions of the book. One is free for players only, clocking in at something around 259 pages. And the other one is a paid version, costing $25 with all the information a Game Master needs, clocking in at 432 pages. Son, what did you think of your read-through of Lancer?
Yeah. So, for clarity's sake, I read Lancer quite recently, today, and a little bit yesterday, and I've not been in the best reading space, but with the fact that this is a huge fucking book, to be fair, a lot of it, the last quarter of it, is the world setting guide stuff, and then you got the GM section. But you would think this is a very meaty book, but I thought it was very easy to read. There's a lot in there, but it was really easy to read, and I enjoyed what I saw here. There's been many times where it's like, I know where that's from. That reminds me of this. It helps that this has the essence and some of the core of the Shadow of the Demon Lord game in there. So I recognize a few things in there. But then also because of its tactical nature, I can see, okay, I kind of remember that from D&D 4th edition and the like. I enjoyed Lancer. I want to give it another full in-depth read-through. But beyond that, I am considering running this game.
All right. Unlike Sun, I've been running Lancer once a week and playing Lancer once a week for somewhere around 6 months to a year now. I say that because I've been playing Lancer for less time than I've been running Lancer. So I'm very familiar with this game. I would personally describe it as a cooperative tactical war game masquerading as a tabletop RPG. However, that is purely possibly due to the fact that the group I play with is heavily focused on tactical combat and not so much on roleplay. So, grain of salt there. But yeah, no, main engine-wise, you mentioned Shadow of the Demon Lord. Lancer does have its D20 with a target of 10 for all skill checks. There are sometimes things where you make a save and the enemy has a target for their save that you have to beat instead. Lancer also has boons and banes called accuracy and difficulty. They act exactly as they do in Shadow of the Demon Lord. Additionally, Lancer actually does mess with the aim for 10 thing by having a few extra qualifiers when you're making a skill roll. You can have it be risky, where you will succeed on a 10, but you will still suffer a negative consequence if you do not roll a 20. Difficult, where it applies a difficulty to your roll to beat 10. And heroic, I believe, where you need to beat a 20 in order to succeed at all. And of course you can combine these difficult heroic rolls, difficult risky rolls. You can't do risky and heroic rolls, unfortunately, because they're kind of contradictory. Lancer also, according to the Guildmaster, I've never actually read Fate, borrows some from Fate with a concept called triggers. Triggers are small phrases that could vaguely apply to a variety of situations that you get in a +2, 4, or 6 in Lancer, and these are just flat modifiers to your D20. And for the most part, in terms of core engine-wise, that's Lancer in a nutshell. Beat 10 or a listed target, and you get on, in roleplay scenes, something called triggers that add a flat +2, 4, or 6 to your d20. There is also a concept called grit that gets added to all of your rolls as you level up, equal to, I believe, half your level rounded up, but that's its own thing. And also, grit is the only modifier you get to weapon attacks at all, so it acts as a kind of proficiency, in theory.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with that being Lancer's core engine, I guess we can start talking about thematics. Unless you have more comments, of course.
No. I think you summarized it quite nicely there. Oh, and also the main gameplay style is like, you know, pick a mission, or the GM has a mission, you know, stakes and goals clearly mentioned, preparation, go on the mission, win or lose, come back, level up. The missions could be multi-session or a single session. Then go into the narrative phase, downtime, where you progress your character's story and prepare for the next mission. So, simple gameplay loop. But yeah.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, do you want to start us off with a standout or a thematic, or should I?
I will. I will just reiterate what I just said. I think how Lancer presents how you structure the gameplay of Lancer sets the scene quite well. Hey, this is a mech game where you get given a mission, choose a mission, the goals and the stakes are set nice and clearly. The goal might be slightly different from what the mission's set based on your player group. And, you know, based on the story, it's like, oh, are you actually working for this patron, or are you being undercover and secretive? But either way, you have a task at hand, prepare for it, get ready, and then cut to the action. In this phase, it's mission briefing, prep, gather reserves, which is basically just extra gear to alleviate the, hey, did we bring this? No, we didn't. No, we actually brought that. It's just like a nice, simple, this is the extra stuff we have. We can pull out of our asses. And then boots on the ground. And boots on the ground is cut to the mission when the Lancers get there. Doesn't mean get straight into combat, but it's the, you know, they arrive, cool, the Lancers are here. And already in it. Getting rid of all that fluff and preamble that might stall the interesting start to the mission.
Yeah.
And then win or lose whatever your goal is. Any of the player character Lancers that survive, eventually they get a level up, or the level license increases. And then you do a debriefing. And this debriefing doesn't have to be in character, but you basically just go over the things. That's when you level up. And another thing happens, which I'll get to in a later point. And then you go into the downtime narrative play, where this is where you will prepare for the next mission with a downtime action or two, depending on the time between your missions. And also this allows for more free-form roleplay when you're not on mission. And there's some particular actions there that you can just select to either extrapolate the narrative or allow you to then frame that narrative and then get into more detail before you get straight back into your next mission. I think it's a nice, tight way of really framing what Lancer is.
No, you're right. It is a tight way of framing what Lancer's about, the mech combat and the mechs mechanically. That tightness of setup is part of the problem I run into, where I have people and they're like, hey, I want to, join your Lancer game. Hey, fair notice, this group is pretty much like mainly combat. There is little role play. most of the time. And sometimes you get a player who's like, that's fine, I'm down for just some tactical combat. But I've had multiple people but just be like, oh, okay, that's not for me then. I would rather have a game that's 50-50. And it's like, yeah, like my game could be more roleplay oriented. I think it would be hard to find a Lancer game that's 50-50 roleplay.
Fair enough. I want to mention that later, but yeah, I can see why that can be a struggle, especially with these types of games where all that cool stuff that all that making your mech and all that stuff. You wanna use your toy.
Yeah.
So totally fair enough.
And I will say, like, obviously nothing is stopping you from spending 2 or 3 sessions wandering around just chatting up NPCs. But Lancer's game loop and design isn't about that. That's something that you can do. You could play fucking Vampire the Requiem and just sit there and lose blood until you either frenzy and eat someone or fucking torpor out and just don't wake up anymore, and that can be your experience. It's not what the game is designed around, but you can do it.
What about you? What's your first offering?
Okay, cool. So I want to talk a little bit about how Lancer uses certain aspects of the Demon Lord engine in order to shift the game from something that was originally a fast, deadly combat horror game into something where players are, by design, powerful badasses.
Okay.
Lancer has very small health bars compared to things like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. To give you a sense about how health bars and damage works in Lancer, just very quickly, you have a stat called Evasion. That is your AC, quote-unquote. You also have Armor, which reduces incoming damage unless something is armor-piercing. And a player has 2 sets of 4 health bars. 1 health bar is heat, 1 health bar is damage. If it's possible to die after losing your second health bar of health, and I think also possible to die after losing your second health bar of damage. Or sorry, heat, I should say. But that's statistically improbable. For reference, the thing that needs to happen is you need to roll a 1 on a d6 after losing 2 structure or stress. And then on the structure table, fail a hull check, which is a straight up roll a d20 and beat 10. So even if you have no points in the mech skill hull, you have a 50% chance to succeed. And then if that happens, your mech is instantly destroyed. And your pilot is still alive, because Lancer has some pretty good safety features for pilots. But moving on a bit, enemies, on the other hand, only have 1 health bar. There are very few ways to wind up with an enemy with 30 health or more. And those require specifically and intentionally making the enemies much stronger. And the enemies, in turn, only start hitting 20 health for the most part when you start getting into high-level play, with some very rare exceptions. So Lancer takes a look at Shadow of the Demon Lord's health bars, where things are in the roughly like 10 to 20 range, and says, yeah, that's good. Now give players 4 of them, so that they have a depleting resource as they continue to take damage. And give the enemies 1, and you can keep that fast, punchy combat in the game, while still making players a powerful focus. Players aren't just, another group of people in mechs. Players are fucking Lancers, the hot-shot kick-asses who walk onto the battlefield and change the fucking tide of a war. So
they're the pilot aces.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I find that to be an excellent use of the Demon Lord engine's fast, punchy, and deadly combat to keep players feeling tense. Because a player doesn't look at a health bar of 25 and think, I have 100 health. I will say this from experience. Oh, I have 100 health. They look at that and say, oh god, I'm about to lose a structure, and dread it, because losing a structure can be very, very bad. You can lose weapons and systems, and it sucks. And I've seen people build entire playstyles around avoiding ever taking any heat if they can.
Yeah, no, I really like how they, in a slight twist, they keep the numbers low, even though technically, yes, they have 4 times their health,
Yeah.
technically. But that sense of keeping the numbers low makes it not so overwhelming. Like, oh, damn, I've got so much health. But it also, goes into that secondary feature of the structure, testing your structure damage and the stress damage, and rolling the d6s, and seeing what happens when you actually go to 0 HP before you reset it. Yeah, no, I really do like that, and the simplified HP of just the NPCs. Yes, definitely agree with all that.
What about you?
For me, since we're just talking about the mechs and all that stuff, when people think mech games, there's generally 2 ways you can go about it. Where you go more the simplified route, or you go, I want to really make my mech. The modability and the customizability of Lancer. You have your frames where this basically the basis of these mechs, and then you got license ranks where you can basically um, get more access to more things, more frames, and more parts and the like for those particular manufacturing lines of frames. You have the core systems, which are unique, basically powers that you can switch around. You have the mounts of your frame, so which can hold different types of guns, heavy to auxiliary to if you have a super one, you need to have multiple, use different mounts. You have the gear tags of the weapons and the like, and then even for pilots, we have the talents of how they, their skill as a pilot, how it will slightly affect the different actions and the like they take when they're in their mechs, and then the pilot triggers and the like. And you have once you have access to multiple things in different frame lines, you can just switch them around. It's like, oh, I really like this particular stuff from this really heavy grungy mech. I'm gonna slap it on my alien looking mech because I really like what it'll do for that. And the unique core system powers, just slap it into that one too. There's a lot of space for customizability.
Now, out of curiosity, when you say core system powers, are you referring to core bonuses, or are you referring to a mech's core power?
The mech's core power.
Those are locked to the mech.
Oh, sorry, the core system bonuses, I think. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. The ones that you get from like a manufacturer rather than specifically a mech.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are free.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good.
Yeah.
No. Actually, the Lancer's naming conventions is straight up in my criticisms, but we will wait for that until it comes. But no, you're right. Lancer does have an amazing way to customize your mech. To give a little bit more of a clear view to everyone who hasn't read Lancer before, there are 4 broad manufacturers for Lancer. I'm not going to get into them, but basically 4 styles of mech that, in theory, correspond to one of the 4 mech attributes: hull, agility, systems, or engineering. And anytime you take a rank in a mech, you get things that come from that level of that mech that you bought, and there are 3 levels of each mech. So nothing stops you from buying all the levels of a mech, never touching that mech, taking its equipment, and slapping it onto something else. So it is aggressively freeform. It just requires you to sink some levels into it.
Yeah.
There's no lock between manufacturer or mech. So, if you really like this mech's ability, but you prefer this mech's systems, pilot the mech with the core power you want, and, just take the systems and slap them on. And there are some fucked up synergies. I have seen someone pilot the base mech that players start with only, and be devastating on the battlefield.
Yeah, no, really agree. Like, there's just a lot there, and it. I would think it's like a opt-in complexity. So you know what? I don't want to. I'm just gonna keep it simple. I'll have the basic mech, and then I'll figure out if I like any one of the other particular lines. And then you know what? I'm just gonna focus down that line and get a feel for this one. I'm not gonna mix and match too much. I'm okay.
Yeah.
Then for me,
Oh, you're taking two.
Oh, pardon?
You're taking
sorry.
two.
Yeah, sorry. No, your turn. Your turn.
So for my second point, I want to touch on the way that mechs specialize and how that really makes the game feel. So in Lancer, I know I said the main mechanics dice-wise, but the actual main mechanic of Lancer is breaking the rules of Lancer. Lancer has the rules, specific always overrides general, which means that there are a lot of general core rules to the game, but a lot of mech systems in Lancer let you ignore those in some capacity or alter them. One of the most obvious ones I could think of is what's called the overcharge loop for a mech called Sherman. The way Sherman works is it has an integrated gun that anytime you take an action called Stabilize, which takes your entire turn except for your movement, the Sherman charges that gun up to 4 charges. So what you do, one of the things Sherman gives you very early on in its line is the ability to stabilize as a quick action a limited number of times, with the mech also with the manufacturer further allowing you to get more uses of this limited system. So Sherman then will let you attack, stabilize, and constantly just be cycling out your heat until you have this big integrated gun that you can just fire off at people in a big fuck-off high-damage line. Meaning that the Sherman winds up being one of the highest DPS mechs there is in the game, because your big badass fuck-off weapon is paired with the ability to basically clear your heat for super cheap investment. And it doesn't technically break the rules, but it feels like you shouldn't be able to take all these actions in this order because you shouldn't. The game is like, the normal rules of the game wouldn't let you do this. And there are mechs like that all over the place. There's a mech that lets you take your turn on your ally's turn because you are your ally's mech. There's a mech that lets you never roll dice to shoot a gun because all it does is lay mines and force other people to roll dice. There is a mech that just doesn't miss and always does 1 AP damage at the end of its turn. And it is the stuff of nightmares. Just all over when you look at Lancer, there are mech abilities that are strange and wonderful and numerous. So, I mean, yeah, the core rules for Lancer are important to know. Expect them to be broken by every mech in some capacity.
And the fact that the core rules are simple enough that it's not too unwieldy to be like, oh shit, okay.
When you start getting into certain mech specifics, it starts to get really granular, but broadly, yes.
Yeah, broadly. Yeah.
Weapon tags are a little bit fun and fucky.
Yeah. Well, then for me, let's go in the opposite direction, as I really enjoyed how the narrative play was written out and structured and told me how I could basically run it. Not just during the downtime, but also during missions and the like. I thought it was written out really well in how, it states, narrative play. It's the roles are going to be accomplishing more, scenes are going to be larger stretches of time, and the outcomes of individual roles will thus, be more important. You know, the NPCs, they don't act on initiative and roll. Their actions are determined by the PC's roles. And PCs have to state goals. And the GM has to determine if there are any outcome consequences to attempting that and tell them. And if there aren't, well, obviously they succeed and you can move on. Otherwise, yeah, this is just when you're going to be doing skill checks during narrative play and all that. If combat occurs during narrative play and you're not going into huge amount of detail and using your mechs, where you would then go into the standard mech play, just more skill checks and all that stuff. If, you know, the player's goal is to kill this guard that they're, you know, tussling in a bar brawl and all that stuff, well, they just have to succeed their skill check. And it's up to you where that guard is more difficult. Or it might be a risky situation, or this is a heroic attempt at killing this guard. You may be using a little shank, or, you know, maybe you're trying to sneak into an encampment and you're just taking a shot with your signed sniper rifle. You know, and nice simple things like that. And it makes mention of you know, skill challenges when you might want to, you know, have a more group based thing where the group has to make a skill check and it depends if the majority succeeds or not. Or if there's multiple stages, like distinct stages to this narrative play, you can go into more of an extended challenge where basically it's a majority of if you've won more stages than you've lost. And both of those things remind me heavily of 4th edition, with the skill challenges and the like. But yeah, basically in narrative play, players always have the benefit of the initiative. They choose to act first. The GM can't ask for the rolls. Players determine the action of the narrative play. And I really liked the guide of that. And it showed that, sure, you got your toys of your mechs and all that stuff, but there is a good foundation for those in-betweens in those mech combats and the like. And, you know, in some instances, especially if you have player groups that are totally okay to lean the other way, you can play missions more out in total narrative play and the like. And then once you get into the downtime section, you know, yeah, generally you always have one downtime action, which is like a mechanical, hey, choose from this list of things that you could potentially do. And then, you know, you can play it out totally. Or if you want to just skip it because of your group style or time-wise, you can do that. But also the free-form play, which, you know, you still use the guidelines from before. So, yeah, I really liked... Yeah, I wasn't expecting... I've always heard it's like there's some pretty decent guidelines to narrative play, but then also it's like, it seems like it's all up to the GM to just fluff it and all that. But when I read it, I'm like, no, I'm actually happy with what they provided for the non-mech parts.
Yeah. So I will say, it actually, as you were talking, I remembered something. I think I know why my group might not be as big of a fan of narrative play. I've actively had my players ask me to never do non-tactical mech like gameplay in depth ever again after doing a mission once. And it's because it reminds me a little bit of Powered by the Apocalypse, drawing a bit from that DNA of players determine like what the action is, and the GM calls for rolls with consequences rather than there being fixed like obvious turns. And I happen to know for a fact that these guys don't like Forged in the Dark, and they don't like Powered by the Apocalypse, which is funny because Lancer doubles down on Powered by the Apocalypse style gameplay in one of their expansions, which is the Kerrigan Trade Baronies, where they add in Powered by the Apocalypse playbooks.
I see. Okay, I didn't even know that. But you can see some Powered by the Apocalypse stuff in the downtime actions, where it's literally choose a downtime action, and when you vie for power, or I can't remember the exact word, but gain power at a cost.
Yep.
Roll this, and you have 3 results: a failure result, a success result, or kind of a mixed result, and a great success result. That is just pure powered by move there. Just the way it might happen is slightly different. It might be framed more. Choose a result here instead of I want to do this thing. But the narrative play opens out from both sides. But yeah, I can definitely see where the style conflicts can occur there.
Yeah. So at the very least, like that's something to point out. And you know what?
Yeah.
That does cause me to take back my Lancer's a tactical war game joke. It's just that my group very much is just not fans of narrative play and very much just want to use it. But I will say that's where the mechanical weight is. If you're looking for mechanical weight, it is behind the mechs because there is nothing like moves outside of downtime. Players are just, I want to do this. Okay, well, I think you need to roll this now, which is in the spirit of Powered by the Apocalypse, but without the structure.
Yeah. The power by stuff, just downtime. The rest is skill checks and they deciding how they want to progress. And the GM during narrative play, their mechanical button is consequences. What is the consequence of this? If there's none, they succeed, move on, reframe it, and all that. And consequences could be damage, could be time, could be new things occur, those types of things. So yeah, definitely still a tactical mech game, but I was actually pretty happy with how guided and structured the narrative side was.
Yeah. All right.
And showed me that it can be just, you can have pilot based missions and all that. It's not just mechs.
No, and pilot based missions genuinely work in kind of a fun way.
What about you? Do you have another offering?
Yeah, I do kind of want to go into downtime just a little bit more. I know that we covered that it was very much a Powered by the Apocalypse style thing. It is also very much designed not to get in the way. If your players prefer their tactical mech combat, you can flesh it out as much or as little as you like. But the benefits of this can be exceedingly far-reaching within the concept of your campaign. Players can build armies with do an organization. There is the opportunity to know what your next mission is going to be for certain, as well as interesting tactical data. Things to basically just slap other mech abilities onto your mech for free for a single mission. The ability to downtime is where you get the majority of your reserves, either from a narrative standpoint or a mechanical. You rolled a downtime action and got a reserve standpoint.
Yeah.
So the narrative aspect of the game is exceedingly important, and
and the fact that they put the reserves, gaining reserves into that downtime roleplay section, kind of emphasizes, hey, you can there is a mechanical benefit to leaning on that narrative portion. Sure, you can just use the moves and that's all good, but there is reward there.
Yeah.
But no, I like the fact that you can create armies and organizations and all that stuff. Yeah, no, really like that.
And then I have a criticism that ties directly into this, if you don't mind. Not skipping ahead, but just since it's so directly related.
Fair enough.
So one of the things about downtime and how it can affect the narrative in that very Powered by the Apocalypse style is that downtime also lets you deal with potentially multiple threat vectors, which again is very Powered by the Apocalypse, where the Apocalypse world itself is talking about oh, you have these threats, and as time goes on you advance a threat in some way, making some more prevalent as they grow to complete their ultimate goal. Lancer does a very poor job of telling you how to use its Powered by the Apocalypse aspects in any definitive way. Because one of the downtime actions is buy some time. buy sometimes stops a threat from coming so you have time to do something else. The main obvious way that a GM would cause a player to use this is to have two separate problems that the players need to deal with coming at once, both about to come to fruition, and rather than have to choose, we're going to go after this one and suffer the effect of this one, you buy some time stopping one and going after the other.
Yeah.
But Lancer doesn't tell you should do that. I've been running this game for a year, and the only reason I fucking thought of this just now was because I have been reading through Apocalypse World Engine again. So Lancer has a great narrative downtime system that can be fleshed out if you know how to run Powered by the Apocalypse games.
Yeah, like in this instance, it would just be more like, okay, the GM is aware that the enemies are going to
but
go up 2 missions later, like just as notes, just like dot point notes. They're going to show up 2 missions later. This one maybe next time or something, and the buy some time is like, okay, I guess 3 missions later. Okay, yeah. Or something like. But yeah, if they added a little bit more in there, that could provide some more levers for the GM to really emphasize that. Totally.
Yeah. And that is my last major standout before I have to start going into criticisms very heavily. Well,
since you are talking about downtime actions, there was actually another point I wanted to make mention that kind of helped support the narrative play. Power at a cost is basically the de facto, I want to get some reserves for the next mission type of thing. And at the very end of that move, it says you can also use power at a cost during missions for similar effects. Other downtime actions generally can't be used during missions, but your group can adapt them if desired. I really like that that call out for the fact that this move could be used during a mission. So that's like, oh, interesting. But then all the other actions, probably not. But, and I like that but, where it's like, oh, okay, interesting. The fact that it basically opens that potential design space and play space to be like, okay, my players, we actually really like using the downtime actions, maybe just as buttons or maybe for narrative jumping off points. How could we actually use these during our narrative points in our mission? And I was thinking this could be very useful for those multi-session missions where maybe just at the end of the mission, at the end of that session, if you're not like in the middle of combat, this could be, and you kind of have planned the fact that there's going to be some time. Hey guys, just this is going to be like a quick downtime action. Let's say, is there anything you want to do while you're resting up during this, long mission? I like that.
No, yeah, that is definitely a good thing.
But no, that's all I really have to say on like thematic standouts. Yeah.
All right. Well then, criticisms. I'm going to go first.
Yep, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay, cool. So Lancer has these little fun symbols that they use for all sorts of little things. There's one for threat. There's one for each damage type. There's one for heat. Oh, it's so fun and great. Why the fuck is the goddamn key for this 116 pages in? Keep in mind, for the most part, they will show a symbol and tell you what it is if it's before the key. Oh, this means, kinetic damage. This means kinetic. Oh, energy damage. This means energy. Oh, burn damage. This means burn. Except for threat. Threat is a critical concept when referring to a number of actions that players can take and the way that engagement and how certain weapons work. They do not explain what threat is until 116 pages in, when they've been using the symbol for it for damn near 20 pages. And the thing is, all of this thing where you do your little cute symbol for kinetic damage and then have to explain 4 or 5 times throughout your examples that it's kinetic because you haven't put your key in yet, could have been solved by putting your goddamn little fucking symbol key earlier in the book. Or here's a fucking thought, just use words, you assholes! I swear
I'll
to
make
fucking
a quick
God.
addendum there. I do see threat being mentioned on page 64 with the icon. So that's way. And if anything, I think that's the first time I've seen it threat being mentioned there. So
Okay, so that's fair. Maybe I just missed that one, but it doesn't change the fact that if they just put their key earlier, they wouldn't need to fucking do this shit.
for me, like I can definitely understand if there are icons being used way before the key. Totally.
116
On my
pages
read,
before. 116 pages
uh,
before the key.
yeah, on my read through, I only started seeing symbols with the actual words like kinetic energy, explosive burn, and all that stuff, and threat, and then like the attack patterns and ranges all at the same time
Oh,
before
yeah.
they started bringing up. So, and also
Yeah, put it there. Put
we'll
your key there, where it's fucking relevant then. Not 160
yeah
pages in, after that section.
I'll make mention. I'm reading the book today, yesterday. Oscar, when did you read the book? I don't know which version, and
I originally read the
update.
free version several years ago. I have repeatedly referenced my copy of the core version. I don't know, both of them about a year ago. I haven't updated my copy of the book because I check for updates and I don't think there has been one in a while.
So there might be some discrepancy in when we're seeing things, but as far as I'm concerned, I see the images and the words at the same time, way before it starts getting like where they don't mention the words or whatever. If that does happen sometimes, yeah.
Fair, but also just put your fucking key there. Just put it where it's relevant.
Yep, but totally fair. Totally fair.
It is an out of context sidebar. 40 pages too late. Do you have any?
So while I felt during my read through it was pretty easy, there is still a lot. There's still a lot there. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming for me. Like, maybe it's just because I'm just not. It's been a while since I've read or played a game with like this heavy amount of, the compendium section. Once they start getting into the mechs, page 118 to 253. Oh, my eyes started glazing over once I was going through those things. That's just a me thing, really. It's nothing on the book itself, but it was for me. It was starting to get a bit overwhelming, and I know I would need more time and probably multiple days with my cups of tea and all that. Just going through is like, oh, that's an interesting mech, but it is a bit of an info dump when you're just trying to read through the book in basically one sitting.
Oh yeah, my genuine advice for reading Lancer from page 86 on, stop. Unless you're the GM, in which case, please resume when enemies start becoming a function in the game, and only, like, skim those. Go by how cool the name is.
No, I will definitely say in my read through, I was like, okay, the first page of the contents, getting started, building pilots and mechs, mission uptime and downtime, mech combat, they'll get you up to page 80, 86. You are good. And then it starts getting into here's actually there's the talent pool which you'll need to go through, but here's the gear and here's just all the mechs.
Yep.
It does get a little bit overwhelming. If you want to just consume Lancer and be like, I think I understand it, and then I'll get back to it. Yeah, I think page 86 is a good stopping point to have like a mental break before you really absorb the before page 86 is the general rules. And as Oscar mentioned, with the mechs breaking the general rules with specificity, yep, that word. That's when you get into page 86 and beyond.
Yep.
I'll throw it back over to you.
Let's talk about word choice.
Yeah,
You may
okay.
have noticed earlier in the episode, I asked Sun to specify if he was referring to a core bonus or a core system. Now you may be thinking, what's the difference? I think there's a third thing called a core passive, but that's a whole fucking thing. You see, there are multiple very different concepts that use the word core in them. A mech's core ability or a core system is an immovable ability specific to the mech, typically requiring activation, sometimes with a passive bonus. A core bonus is an ability you take from a mech manufacturer after getting 3 ranks within their licenses, and can apply to any mech. You may note that this is fucking bullshit and uses 2 very similar names that are very easy to mix up. This is not the only
Yeah.
time this happens in Lancer. Would you like to know what your level is called in Lancer? It is a license level. You may note that you also take levels in licenses to mechs. These are not the same thing, and do not have a direct correlation except for getting 1 mech license rank per license level. When explaining this to new people, they get very confused because it sounds like you're saying the same fucking thing. You're not. And it's very important to specify that no one is ever locked into taking ranks for a mech once they've started. It took me 3 read-throughs of that section to make sure that I wasn't fucking having a stroke.
Like, I'll be honest, when Oscar was talking about Lancer, and, you know, many, many moons ago, probably when you were just getting into it and like just starting to run it and all that stuff, and you're talking about this stuff, my eyes were, you know, and just hearing it through my headphones, over the internet, me maybe staring at something at my screen, or just standing around my room and listening to you. My eyes were definitely getting crossed, and as I was trying to understand, okay, license levels, license ranks, mech buy, yeah, there is some word overlap, and obviously because sci-fi game and all that, some fancier word usage and all that, that some clarity is lost there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's why I refer to license level and license rank. They aren't called license ranks. You increase the rank of a mech license and you gain a license level. It is bad fucking choice of working.
Well, I'll make mention that at least in my book, you get a license rank that you upgrade a license tier, I think, of the frame line.
I'm fairly sure that what it says, because I'm looking at the page right now on my copy, which is the most important thing to remember when leveling up is that you only choose or increase the rank of 1 license at a time.
Yeah, because like leveling up on like page 18, you get +1 license rank to spend on mech talents.
Page 18. I'm also looking at the one on page 116 because there's 2 sections about leveling up. Lancer does there being 2 sections about things a couple of times also, which is super annoying, but
yeah, so they might have cleared it up in my version of the book where they say license rank now, for when you where you want to spend that license rank point in a license tier.
No, yeah, they do say license rank on page 18. Still a lot of the word license, which somehow, after having played this game for so long, I still have trouble spelling.
Well, there's the American and there's the British way of doing it.
Oh, really? Oh, great. And then maybe I'm just doing British. Who knows? But anyways, yeah, that's my next criticism.
Honestly, for me, like the phrasing was one of my biggest issues, and just the fact that there is a lot. It's not the best book to read in one sitting and all that. I don't really have any like glaring issues. I think it's a solid book, solid guidelines, solid tips and all that stuff. It's just the fact that because of its tactical nature and highly customizability, some phrasing and remembering things occurs a decent amount. But the fact that I have the general understanding of the rules allows me to run this And then when my players can start fucking about, I can be like, oh, okay, what the fuck's going on here? So no, I don't really have many criticisms beyond that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I already did my criticism about like, hey, what's with the way that this is about how it kind of explains to you the concept of like how to play, but doesn't do a very good job of explaining the powered by the apocalypse aspects. It has, oh god, if I were to be kind of rude about the way I would phrase this, it has the style of the setup without understanding why it does that and how it's relevant. But I could accuse
I guess
a lot
it's
of
inspired by the setup.
no, yeah, and I could
uses it for its own game.
I could accuse a lot of Powered by the Apocalypse games of the same thing. Dungeon World.
Which we do not need to get into.
No, we don't. That is unrelated to Lancer, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would necessarily call this a criticism, but so Lancer has a tool called CompCon. It's entirely free, and all of the like player-facing stuff for CompCon is available for free if you just go on itch and download their .json files called .lcp files. The fact that CompCon makes the game so much more like easy to run kind of drives me nuts because
why?
You know what? Here, let me put it to you this way. Lancer is very heavily based on Shadow of the Demon Lord, including its 3 levels per class thing. That's not exactly how Shadow does it, and Lancer goes to 12 from 0 to 12 rather than from 0 to 10, but that's not relevant here. Shadow does a job of slowly building complexity. Lancer chucks you in the deep end of the pool and says, "Swink or swim, bitch."
I see.
And,
so, is this a situation? I think I was thinking about this before we started the podcast, where it's like, does Oscar have some gripes with this game because of what it is inspired by, and you're kind of comparing it to those inspirations, type of thing?
In some cases, I look at what Lancer has inspired by, and I see those things having done it better. And I say, if you're inspired by it, like not to say that I think Lancer needs to keep the like class locking until certain levels of other games, but talents being dropped on a player at level 0, despite like the early customization they allow for a build, significantly increases the amount of time and difficulty for character creation.
Actually, yeah, you know what? That is a good point. I like the idea of talents and all that, but
maybe wait until license level 1 and when players have come to grips with the mechanics a bit.
Yeah, exactly. For people that don't know, Shadow of the Demon Lord, you start at level 0. This is your starting, this is the starting tier where you just have an ancestry, a race, you're an orc or whatever, and you're basically a peasant, or you might be a soldier, but you don't have a class, and you just go through a horrible situation, and if you survive, now you get to choose a class and start, after you've figured out how to do the basic roles and figure out how to play the game, now you can decide, do I want to be more fighty or stabby or magic-y and all that stuff? And in the same sense, license level 0, this is your starting mission. And they have a nice guideline of like, hey, this is a starting mission. Maybe depending on the group, you want to like figure out your relationship links and all that. Here's some tables to prompt you. Here's a group identity table. Or maybe you want to figure out during play. It's like, cool. That's all stuff that, you can see in Shadow, but also it's just great guidance for the starting session. But also, now you have to take some talents that, will help define your play style. I do think, yes, having talents in license level 1 would be preferable.
Yeah, and like just I mean maybe and so like the thing you could do with that is you could give players at license level 1 3 talents with 1 at rank 2 or a 4th talent if they want, and you would have the same number of talents, but it would allow players. The thing is talents are, unless you've played Lancer before, you are picking blind.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, I think that's a good thing that we mentioned. Yeah, the inspiration of license level 0 and level 0 in Shadow. That is the learning level. And since, a mission can be done in a single session, it's supposed to be, hey, everyone, let's try out Lancer. Let's, see if we like it, see, get a feel. Okay, now we can start getting into the nitty gritty type of thing.
The
So,
only
yeah.
game I've seen with longer character creation is Cyberpunk, and I will say back before I knew about or was using CompCon, Lancer and Lancer was second longest because of talents.
I see.
And this is compared to a game like Shadow where pick your ancestry, here's your stat alignment, let's go. So in terms of character creation buy-in, Lancer loses a lot of the approachability and can overwhelm people, like not just with choice paralysis, but just overall with, wow, I have to go through this many things. I can't just buy 3 ranks of a talent that I think will be helpful. No, I have to read through all of these and pick 1 rank of 3. Okay, cool. I guess I'm defining my playstyle before I fully know what I'm doing in the game. Because Lancer's not a mechanically simple game. When you look at the rules beyond the dice, things like weapon profiles, weapon slots, mount systems, area of effect profiles and shit like that, it gets complicated fast.
Yeah.
So Lancer is a lot of complication built upon a good core system. And that's not a bad thing, but it's also not a great thing. And then I do have one final really dumb nitpick that it's not.
I just
go.
I just want to make mention. I like the idea of I like this simple, or I like this core system, like Shadow of the Demon Lord. This is a good basis to apply my game and add complexity on it. I appreciate that they went with that concept instead of going for like, here's a very complicated core system type of thing.
No, you're right.
Yeah, I do want to make mention of that. Like, while yes, there might be some discrepancy of like, you're inspired by this, but then might tweak things that worked with that inspiration to maybe not work as much. But the fact that you are building upon a simple structure outwards is beneficial.
Yeah. And no, like Lancer has a great core system. It does a great job of providing stuff. There's some the standouts. I'm going to go back to being positive, but these are some criticisms that I feel need to be said of Lancer. And this last one is super petty. In the Lancer player's guide, for about 90% of the page numbers, you can click anywhere on the like little line where it says like the name and then the number, with a few very small exceptions. But you don't have to just specifically click the number for the hyperlink to work, except on the section mech structure for some reason. And also getting started. In the Lancer core book, you always have to click the page number, and I don't know why it's in there for only the GM version where everything got made this way and you have to click the number instead. I would like that changed. I miss being able to just click a word and go where I want instead of clicking a page number. And you had it working like 90% of the time in the player version. Why not in the full book, guys?
I see.
It's incredibly petty and small, but also like you had it. It's not even like it was copied and then the new parts are done in the way that slightly dislike me. Parts that worked that way before were fucking changed.
I see. Yeah, I don't know if I have a preference between clicking the page number or clicking the chapter page title. I
I
don't know.
prefer picking the title because it's a bigger hitbox, but you
Fair
know.
enough.
But yeah, no, that's just like a small nitpick that like it's only weird because it's different in two different copies of the same
Ooh.
book.
I will make mention actually, since we are talking about this. While you were talking about certain things, it's like, oh, I might as well go to that page just to see if I want to make reference to something, and I'll like the general mass of systems, the core bonuses, and all that. So I click on in the contents page, page 118, and it takes me to page 218. So there is some issues with the hyperlinking, at least with my copy.
Oh. Uh yeah. Wow, I'm not
Yeah.
having that problem. That's super fucking weird. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I might have to, I don't know, download a completely fresh copy, even though I downloaded this recently. But yeah, uh, just wanted to make it a reference to it, since that is just my experience currently.
Well, yeah, so there you go. Some minor complaints about hyperlinking from me this time instead of Sun. Standouts.
Standouts. So I love the layout of this book. I love the this feel, the look of this book. The artwork, lovely. The font and text choice, the big stark. Just as soon as you open the art cover, you got just Lancer and white text with a red background fully, and then just the constant black and white and red highlights. Very nice style. And then the chapter pages, a nice spread artwork with the title. And then in that chapter page spread, there is a contents page for that chapter, not just on the page of contents at the start of the book. So you can reference it at the chapter as well. What is in this chapter too?
Yeah.
I think the layout and all that really nice.
No, yeah, wholly agree. And yeah, no, Lancer's art is famously beautiful. For those who don't know, Lancer was the art and was made by, and Lancer broadly was co-written by the Kill 6 Billion Demons guy, who anyways, so you know that you are getting some truly beautiful art, and I will say on another, I feel very important note, Lancer manages to avoid one of the cardinal sins of game art, which is depicting something in art that can't really happen in the game.
Okay, fair enough.
For instance, Forbidden Lands, you're probably not going to find a guy riding that raptor thing because that's not actually like a major thing in Forbidden Lands. I don't even think that little raptor enemy exists, but it's on the art and it looks good, and I hate that I can't do that.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I want to be the Wasteland Warrior with the raptor, but no, says Forbidden Lands. Play this
I see.
dice pool system instead. And then I
I
started
see.
crying because it was a dice pool, and at the time I didn't like them. I should read that game again sometime. But no, yeah, Lancer's art is beautiful.
Hmm.
Getting Lancer for the art is genuinely worth it, and that kind of annoys me.
Yeah. With you and your art.
Oh no, it's not even that. I just some of the things the artist who made Lancer has said about his art and other games comes across as incredibly shitty and self-centered. So I kind
okay.
of fucking hate him, but that is purely a wow, what a massive dick thing to say. Maybe don't discredit other people's effort and work. You fuckbag.
I
But
see.
whatever. That's I'm not gonna get into that.
Fair enough. I see. Well, nice to point out for people that want to at least explore that themselves.
90% of Lancer's art is in the free version. Just go get it and fucking look at the pretty pictures if you want to. Genuinely, it's free.
What about you? What is your offering for any nice things?
So I mean, if we're gonna talk about really cool things for Lancer. I think one of the things that Lancer does do very well for the GM's toolkit section is it discusses a number of sit reps for GMs to pull from to start out, so that way your mission is not go to the place and kill the things. Sometimes it is go to the place and complete a specific objective with an infinite number of respawning enemies until you finish it, so you can't just kill your way through the problem. And I have pulled some of these sit reps out to fuck with my players and have them very nearly fail missions. I literally had a player, had the players fail a mission and then have a player say, wait, I have this one ability, can I try? And I said yes, and he pulled victory from the jaws of defeat. It was very impressive.
No, yeah, I really, really like the GM's guide with everything that it provides.
Yeah, it's great for running
know.
the tactical combat of this cooperative war game that masquerades as a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, yeah, it's got the standard stuff, GM principles and all that stuff, and like eliciting responses and how you should go that, setting up your game, your first session, building a narrative, a mission hook table where you can go through like examples there, and then just standard running the game stuff, and about skill checks, failing forward, your pacing, and then gets into the mech combat, how many fights, length, and all that, and the sit reps especially basically like encounter structures to whole missions and the like.
Yep.
Where you can just see it's like there's like the gauntlet in an extraction mission, and it's got like a little diagram and all that, and explains it further on, and then like a world building kind of structure where you can quickly roll up some concepts for worlds that you can go into more detail with, and then going into the non-player characters and the like with templates.
As GM tables go, Lancer is a fucking treat. It's very good at showing you how to run the combat stuff and the mech stuff and the mission stuff in a way that's interesting, fun, and diverse. I've had players swear at me for making them walk through a swamp that slowed them when they were all a bunch of heavy defensive mechs that moved slowly. And they knew that's what they were getting into, and they didn't change their mechs. They made their choice. And they were like, that was fucking awful. Never make us do a move mission again. And I said, sure. And then I lied and did it anyways.
Since I mentioned it at the very beginning, I want to say that I appreciate, for a game that is a tactical fighty game, I appreciate some of the inspiration and references to D&D 4th edition with the classes, mechs, NPCs by role. It tells you what they are particularly good at. An artillery, a controller, a defender, a striker, a support. And then for the NPCs, they go into more detail. Like, for artillery, they may bombard. They might be an operator. There's an operator, they're very mobile and a teleporting artillery that consistently deal high damage. And just from reading out all those roles, you can be inspired and get an idea of how you could potentially run encounters without even looking at the encounter setup thing, and then also the NPCs themselves. A great way to quickly understand the different types of NPCs that the players can encounter. But then also for the players, they can quickly get an overview of the different mechs and how they will basically be run, or what they're really good at, the different core systems and all that stuff. I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I will say, if you want to build to a concept, the striker, artillery, defender, controller, support breakdown is really helpful, especially since most of the mechs are hybrids of one of those. I think there are 2 mechs that are genuinely just defenders in the core book. I know that in the later books they get a little bit more specific. I think there's a striker controller. There's a mech. I know what the mech is. I think it's a striker controller. People like to call it Doom Guy because it's a human-sized mech with a shotgun that has the ability that whenever you activate knockback, you travel towards your opponent by the amount they were knocked back, and all the shotguns deal knockback. It's literally just fucking Doom Guy.
Yeah.
Hook and all.
What
Uh,
about you?
yeah, so for mine, I actually really want to talk. This is a standout for me. I want to talk about Lancer's enemy list and game balance and how genuinely fantastic it is. So,
Okay.
for anyone who's never played or looked at the GMing section for Lancer, Lancer has a list of about one, two, let's say like a lot. I'm gonna guess 20. Just looking at this, 20 enemies. Not including the special enemies of human, squad of humans, and monstrosity, none of which are mechs, and are
The fact
therefore
that there
unique.
are 5 roles and there's about 5 listings, I would say 25. Bump it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair, probably.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the number of enemy mechs is reasonable. This is not a super long and expansive list. However, the ability to customize and balance these enemies is made really, really cool by the way Lancer tells you to balance the game, which is that once every roughly 4 levels, you increase the enemy's tier. And every single enemy has 3 tiers of what they do, changing their skills, health, damage, and sometimes other things like frequency of times they can use abilities and stuff like that. In addition, every single enemy has selectable little customization bits that they can slap onto to make them a little bit different than another version. So you can have 2 of the same enemy next to each other, and they can slightly change up how they fill their role, becoming very different threats on the field while keeping a similar core ability set. Which basically means that Lancer only needs the list of enemies it has because the enemies scale with your players. And if you still need something a little extra special, there are templates. And templates allow you to take an enemy and make them even further specialized and customized so that when you're fighting a player, you can have your enemy be super special. From being a boss type enemy to being a weak as shit enemy or a specialized mercenary or pilot. You can turn a mech into a spaceship with this. It's very nice.
Yeah, no, like just the fact that they give you 25-ish enemies and then 3 ranks of those enemies and then an additional modular adding on to them. That is so many variations of the same enemy. And then adding the template on top of it. Yeah, like it'll
Oh,
take
there's
a bit
30.
for you to feel like you've exhausted this list.
Yeah. I know, there are 30 enemies apparently. And again, like, if an enemy itself is getting kind of stale, slap a fucking template on it. Slap 2 templates on it. There are multiple templates that you can just stack. It is theoretically possible to give a single enemy somewhere in the realm of, like, 7 fucking health bars.
Yeah.
Because sometimes an enemy needs 4 health bars to really fuck your players over. And that's okay. And
Yeah, you want that Final Fantasy, next stage, not even my final form type of thing.
yeah, and sometimes your players take an enemy and fucking wall juggle the son of a bitch to death, and that's a
Yeah.
fucking hilarious thing to watch happen. Because you can
I
literally just
see.
sit there and start playing Devil May Cry music while they wall juggle an enemy.
Oh, interesting.
Caliban is a fucking Doom Guy is a scary mech, and the fact that I had a player actually wall juggle was the funniest thing I've ever seen in Lancer, and I am including my current player's objective of steal the moon.
Okay. Of that interesting statement, I want to make mention that I like the simplicity of pilots and how they're designed. You roll or choose a 1d20 background that has some example or triggers. And in each of those backgrounds, they provide question prompts that, can help you, form the character or infer potential, character arcs and scenarios that you may get up to. Um, and then the 4 triggers themselves, which, you don't have to go with the 4 that they give that they connect to the backgrounds, allowing for these 20 backgrounds to, I'll say, mechanically feel very different and allow the fairly simple pilot part of your character sheet to feel very unique and allow each, you can have all the same background as a criminal, but then your triggers are what really make you feel different and allow your personality to shine, especially during the narrative play when you can get those triggers to work.
Yeah. And I will say, like, triggers are great. Triggers are actually. So I was told that triggers work a little bit like a concept of how skills work in Fate, and like that made me interested in Fate because triggers are, I think, one of the best aspects of Lancer. Because whether or not you're doing limited narrative roleplay or are going really in depth, triggers are just a super quick and simple way to be like, hey, am I skilled at this? Yes or no? Cool, roll it.
Yeah, and this is like inspired by the Shadow of the Demon Lord system with professions, where you could consider this like a skill proficiency. You could be a criminal, and then any time a situation came up where it's like, hey, do my criminal skills come into play here? It's like, it's like probably. And do you want to define it more? It's up to you. It's up to the group how you really do it. But yeah, you get a benefit to it. You roll a boon, or in this case, here it's actually a trigger where it's just a flat modifier.
Yeah, and you can stack triggers and accuracy.
Yes, exactly. And in this case, Lance's almost inspiration of Demon Lord's professions is the background, where in a situation where your background gives you a benefit, you get an accuracy, you roll a 1d6. But also, different from Demon Lord, if your background would give you a detriment, it'd be difficult. Maybe you lived in space, therefore you trying to communicate with these farmers down on the earth. It's a difficult situation. So you actually, are going to get a detriment to that. I like that. I like that there's a benefit and a detriment
Yeah.
to choosing a background.
No, there is, yeah, and it's really great. And also the fact that you don't have to choose background triggers if you don't want to.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can just take whatever you want. Is very good.
And also you can create your own with the assistance of your GM to, if the provided triggers are not enough for you.
So, on my end, unless I was to start talking about haha funny mech builds, I don't really have much to go on for standouts. My general one for that would be that in Lancer, you can build a lot of insane and incredibly powerful stuff as a joke and then watch it demolish encounters and fucking cry laughing.
Okay, then I will make mention of the thing that I was going to talk about. After you finish your mission, you go into the debriefing stage of things, where you level up and then you debrief, where you can actually have an in-character debriefing with your patron, your mission giver, or whatever. Or you can just talk out of character, where you just review what happened in the session, what went well, what went wrong, what was fun, interesting. It states in the book a great time for validation. As you as a GM to validate your players, making mention that this could be the first session for particular players. It's great for both players and GM to, help everyone recognize what they want to focus on in future games. And this is kind of an inbuilt game safety tool that people might know of. The namesake, debriefing, or stars and wishes, and even a little bit of bleed. So I like recognizing that and seeing it just like actually written down in the system as part of that gameplay loop.
Yeah, it is. Although I will admit, the only times my players have ever debriefed is the one time that they actually straight up lost. Although again, that I did like let them pull that one out of the fire because like the guy did have hack fix and it was a broken generator that cost them the mission.
Hmm. Well, in the cases where you probably lose a mission, there's probably more instances where it's like, ah, shit. Well, fuck, that went wrong. Instead of just like, yeah, okay, let's keep playing, type of thing. But
Yeah.
I think it's definitely nice that it's called out, even for the let's keep playing. Maybe you want to give a little bit of time to be like, no, let's talk about it. Let's have this moment as a play group to actually really talk about it out of character. So yeah, I really liked that bit. Um, I liked that initiative was pretty simple. Like for a tactical game, it's just player starts the combat, then an enemy, then the previous player just elects the next player, then an enemy, then continue, and then whichever side uh, finishes all the actions, the other side just goes in whatever order. And then the next round starts, and whichever side ended the previous round, the other side starts it. Nice and simple.
Oh, that's not
Uh,
how I read the initiative system. But all right.
yeah. Player always starts first, and then just
Yeah.
back and forth, and
No,
then
well, like player always start. I read it as player always starts first at the top of the round, like no matter what. So newer top of the round comes, players who's going.
Yep. At the oh, okay, no, yeah. First round, player starts, and then if the player went last, that means the enemy goes first next round. So yeah, it might shift in newer rounds on who starts the round. So yeah, I like that. That's quite simple. And there was one other thing I liked. Yeah, basically the structure and stress table. I really liked that little mechanical nugget where things can go badly and you just keep accruing bad dice every time your HP goes down to 0. And that's when you could potentially die on the second bad dice you get. So it's a nice, especially if you're playing in person, a nice visual represent indicator to the players. It's like, okay, things are starting to go wrong here, and you always choose the lower value. So yeah, on multiple ones, that's when you blow up. So obviously, it's not the same thing, but it reminded me of why I kind of like usage die and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, they were all the standouts that I can list that we haven't already gone over.
No, fair enough. I would say free talk, but I run Lancer constantly. There's not much I can say from a free talk perspective. Because if I were to say, ah ha ha, make Lancer a fantasy game, which, one, the Lancer devs are writing Icon. Two, there is a Lancer fantasy game called Beacon that exists. Three, Shadow of the Demon Lord is the main engine that this fucking game, like, rips most of its mechanical content from, in terms of, like, dice and the way levels work. So there's not really a point in joke, haha, make Lancer a fantasy game because 3 options exist. I mean, I guess you could talk about releasing settings for Lancer, and people have released amazing settings for Lancer with unique mechs and with, unique weapons and talents, and they're all very cool and very interesting.
No, yeah, no, totally. Like,
What do you want to do with Lancer? I already do it. I run it.
There is a lot already out there. Myself, I cannot think of anything that I would immediately be like, okay, now what do I want to do different or add on to it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I would probably just, for me personally, probably focus on the NPCs and how I could create more optional systems to tack onto each of the already created NPCs,
Yeah.
and then work from there probably.
Yeah, or create all sorts of weird, like new default NPCs. I know that beyond the core book, there are a couple of popular. I don't know where they come from. NPC types. They might come from No Room for a Wallflower, where there are certain enemy types that it's like the ogre and the Valkyrie, and they aren't in the core book, but they seem to be hybridized NPCs, which are pretty cool.
And then probably a like as simple as you could get, at least for me, with Lancer, a 0 to 12 mission campaign.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are any. I don't know how long Solstice Reign or No Room for a Wallflower really is.
Yeah, I haven't looked into those things, but that would probably be my next step if I wanted to really get into it. Where it's like, yeah, I want to design, simple or maybe slightly less simple. What could be a nice campaign of 0 to 12 with some optional missions in there for like a little bit less linearity.
Yeah, no, and you know
Yeah.
what? Yeah, no, Lancer. I mean, there's a lot of design space to customize Lancer, but in terms of like direct like improvement or adding on to or hacking of Lancer, it's not even that it's not there. It's just that there's already so much. Making your mark on a lot of the concepts of Lancer would be somewhat difficult, and the closest I think I've ever come to that is I'm currently cooking up a homebrew list of biomechs for my players to pilot because of the game I'm running having recently ended an arc in which they were fighting a lot of biomechs.
I see. Yeah, no, fair enough. Like, the structure stress table, tweak those things because there's a lot of modularity in there. Yeah, there are certain things where you can like, let's tweak that. And for a particular style of Lancer game, maybe tweaking the death tables is a place to look at.
Yeah. No, very true.
But no, beyond that, yeah, really it's just looking at the NPCs and then maybe considering like a campaign mission guide. There is a lot out there, and from what I've now read of Lancer, I am definitely curious at looking at Beacon and Icon.
I
and
should
all the
probably
other
read
ones that are
Beacon.
inspired by Lancer but aren't mech games.
Yeah, I should probably read Beacon one of these days because I own it. I keep not reading Icon because I figure I'll just wait for the full fucking game to drop.
Fair enough.
Oh
Fair
yeah,
enough.
and by the way, if you ever wanted to play Lancer but with spaceships, there is Lancer Battlefleet, a game I can't find but that I know exists.
Oh, interesting.
And it's a literal space version of Lancer. It's I wish I could find it on itch.io. Something is stopping me.
Interesting. Oh, that's something to definitely make mention because I can see with the sci-fi space plane shooter games that I have experienced, they're definitely on the simpler side, which I will probably always tend to, but it's interesting. It's nice to see that there is like a Lancer based version.
Yeah. Oh, there is
Um,
also a tactical combat game based on Lancer called Lancer Tactics that is fan made.
oh, yeah, I think I've heard of that one too. Yeah. But no, I looking at Lancer, I definitely have to reread it and reread it with a mind space of, okay, now what if I was actually running this game? Because I sci-fi is not my default go-to with tabletop games, but I do like the mech genre in some aspects. And Lancer definitely has piqued my interest in potentially running it for start playing games.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a market there. I would
Hmm.
know. Lancer Lancer is my longest running game on SPG. It was the first non 5e game I ever ran. It's the and like two of my current Lancer players have fucking stuck with me through, like, at one point I think like 3 months of just no signups, or like no one else like playing the game, and then we got back into it and went right back to it and had like a good fucking time. And now they're stealing the moon, so you know.
Commitment.
Yeah, now we got to figure out if they're gonna blow up Earth or blow up the planet that they came with to steal the moon. I'm looking forward to next session, as you can tell.
But no, I enjoyed my time with Lancer. I liked being reminded of some of other tactical games that I've read, and I think there is a lot to love about Lancer. There are some difficulty curves and some interesting quirks, but I was really impressed by the narrative free play guide, and it definitely has inspired me to consider what that could look like if it was more focused on, compared to, based on what you've said, your games. But no, I really enjoyed Lancer.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, if that's all we both have to say on Lancer, other than just repeating ourselves, then
Yeah.
thank you for joining us today as we looked at Lancer. Join us next time for more indie tabletop discussion and design. I've been Oscar C. Tango, and joining me has been Sun Gone.
You can find me at sungone_ on Twitter, sun on startplaying.games, and sungone on itch.io and YouTube.
And you can find me at Stranded TTRPG on Twitter, Oscar C. Tango on startplaying.games, and Stranded Publishing on itch.io. And you can find all of those links in the description. And remember, don't be afraid to adventure beyond the dragon.